May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be ever mindful of thee, O Lord, my strength and my salvation. Amen. Would you please be seated? During the announcements, Kim Velasquez is going to tell you we have a new policy here. We lock the doors during the service. We do that for two reasons: to make sure you don't leave during my sermon, and part of our new security procedures. We have somebody in the lobby at all times to let in latecomers and to let out those people who just can't take it anymore. But good things, exciting things are going to happen, and Kim will speak to you about the work that we're doing. Now, we're missing 33 people from this service because they're on a cruise. They left this morning. They'll be gone next week, and we'll hopefully see at least 33 of them again after their adventures in the Caribbean. I want to talk to you today, not about security, not about cruising. I want to talk to you about Jesus Christ, about what you can trust in, what you can believe, what you can know it's true. Because there's so much nonsense out there in the world that just wants to lead us astray. I've mentioned from time to time my friend from college, Bill. Bill is a great guy. Don't you always describe your college friends as great guys? Bill was a great guy. He was a bit of a goofball. He had me do his accounting homework. I remember being paid. And any of you know my accounting skills, that was a major risk on Bill's part. Bill, I mentioned a couple of years ago, I'd only hear from Bill when he wanted to borrow money or, things of that nature, usual college sort of friend. About 4 or 5 years ago, I'm watching one of the news shows, and they would have the close of the New York Stock Exchange where they have the numbers underneath, and I'm looking, oh my God, there's Bill on the podium of the stock exchange. And I read in the Wall Street Journal the next day that Bill had taken his software company public, and I knew a billionaire. So I know who I could ask for money in the future. He didn't have to ask me anymore. Well, I haven't seen Bill in the flesh since college reunions, but we keep in touch, and I got a phone call from him. And this past week, and Bill started off the way he usually did, and I started feeling for my wallet. Okay, how much do you need? It's this software thing going downhill so quickly. And he said, George, something really difficult's happened in my life this week, and we were chatting, and he finally got around to it. He said, somebody came to my door, a man came to my door this week, knocked on the door, I opened the door, he handed me a piece of paper, and then he wrote my name on a clipboard. And I learned my wife was suing me for divorce. Now, this was not a surprise to Bill. He'd been separated. Had not been probably an ideal husband. But for Bill, the point came when he basically had that piece of paper in his hand, and the constable was standing in front of him, writing down that he had been served, that all that he had worked for, all that was important to him, all that was what a man should do with his life had come to this, a piece of paper, that was over. The bottom fell out in Bill's life. Now, Bill being Bill had, bought the, which Robbins? Tony Robbins tapes, did the firewalks, bought the tote bag and the coffee mug from Deepak Chopra. He'd done all this stuff for happy thoughts and positive thinking, but when his wife served her with divorce papers, happy thoughts were not that easy to come up with. And, he says, where is God? And essentially, though I didn't do it in these terms, what do you think about God? Who is this God that you're asking for? And he started to talk, and he told me about a God who was a cross between Santa Claus and a particularly nasty headmaster he had when he was a small boy. Either the source of all sweetness and goodness and kindness and comeliness, or a stern, distant judge. And the God that he wanted right now was neither one of those. He wanted a God, a footing, a salvation, something he could stand on, that wasn't going to change. And I thought of our reading from Isaiah this morning. Isaiah is writing about God. He has has a vision of God. It's chapter 6 of the book of Isaiah, and it begins with a historical note. In the year that King Uzziah died. That means nothing to you and me, does it? Uzziah, it's another one of these funny Jewish names. The year King Uzziah died, it's like saying the year that John F. Kennedy was shot, or the year that the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, the year where everything changed for the Jewish people. King Uzziah had been of the house of David. He had been a good general, a wily diplomat. The Assyrians were on the march. They were coming to destroy and conquer and ravage. And Uzziah had kept them at bay. But Uzziah is dead. And you notice we don't have the king is dead, long live the new king, Uzziah II. We have no king. And we have no king at the very moment that Israel needs a strong man to protect them. Put not your trust in kings. Put not your trust in rulers. Put not your trust in ideologies. Put not your trust in the things that will pass away. For Isaiah then has his vision of, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne. God is there yesterday, God is there today, God is there tomorrow. The world politically may be falling apart, yet God is there unchanging. And he's sitting on a throne. Now, why is that significant? God is not hard at work at his desk. God is not in the field. God is not doing anything other than being God on a throne which was high and lofty. A throne that shows he's omnipotent. That throne that shows he doesn't have to do a thing to be God because he is God. And his robe, his train, fills the temple with splendor. This God that he sees on the throne that is high and lofty is surrounded by such joy, such glory, such light, and such power, and such brilliance. It knocks you out. And there were angels, seraphs in attendance, and they had 6 wings. 2 they covered their faces, 2 their feet, and 2 they flew, and they called to one another. Before they called, why do they need wings to cover their eyes? Because this God from whom they worship and they serve is so holy, so powerful, so pure, so clean, that they can't take it looking at him directly. And they cry, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. Now we know what holy means, don't we? Well, what did the Jews then thought it meant? Holy is the word, comes from the same root word as to separate. A holy thing was a thing separated. A holy people. Israel's to be a holy people, separated from the world. These were holy garments, set aside only for the use of the worship of God. This is holy food. This is holy temple. This is a holy place. This is something separate from the normal and set solely for the use and glory of God. And God is being called holy. That's sort of redundant, isn't it? But what he's saying here, the angels are saying here, is that God is so separate. He's 3 times holy. He's not like you or me or the world around us. He is not going to die. He is not going to change. He is not affected by anything. He is so separate because he, in essence, is everything. There is nothing without him. The whole earth is full of his glory. Isaiah starts off by sharing this vision of God, and his response to this glory of God is to feel that I am a man of unclean lips. I am so dirty, so broken, so awful. How can I stand before this holiness? And the Lord responds, go and tell the people. Who shall I send? Send me. What sort of God does Bill need? Does Bill need a God that will give him happy thoughts? Does Bill need a therapist, a counselor? It probably does. But will it grant him what he truly needs? A God who loves him, even through all of his stupidities and mistakes and brokenness. Many of you know I served as a hospice priest for about 5 or 6 years. And Monday through Friday, I worked for the hospice agency, and on Saturdays and Sundays, I served the church in such exotic locales as Okeechobee and Avon Park. And I even did services in Fort Drum, which if you blink, you miss. While I worked in, yes, we have another former resident of Fort Drum. The two of us, I think, were the only people there. Well, I developed specialties. It was a big agency covering Martin and Okeechobee and St. Lucie counties, and there were about a dozen chaplains working for the agency. And we would specialize and do advanced training, and I found myself, through quirks of history, I had two specialties. I'd see regular patients, but I also focused on those with dementia and Alzheimer's. And I spent a lot of time in nursing homes with people who were dying and had Alzheimer's with their families. And at the same time, I was also the pediatric specialist. I was the one who worked with the children under the age of 12 and their families as they were dying. It's sort of an odd combination, but that's sort of how it broke down. And I can remember one couple, David and Nancy. David and Nancy were a lovely couple, and I got to know them as I served them. David and Nancy got married, and they had a baby. The baby's name was Hope, and it was the beautiful child that they always wanted. Hope had a few things they noticed at birth. She had a club foot. Well, that's not a big deal. She was lethargic. She really didn't respond to stimulant. She didn't know how to suck. And they saw the doctors and they did the tests, and they said, your baby has Zellweger syndrome. What is Zellweger syndrome? It's a congenital genetic defect. And that the baby's body is destroying the myelin that is surrounding the nerves. So its brain isn't forming, it's going to go blind, it's going to go deaf, it's not going to be able to eat. Its whole nervous system is being destroyed by its body itself. And Hope lived 168 days before she died. And after the death, they had themselves tested, and David and Nancy found each of them carried this recessive gene, which meant that they could have 4 children, and statistically 1 would be fine, 2 would be carriers with 1 recessive gene, and 1 child would have both genes and have Zellweger syndrome. And the state of science, I don't know what it is today, but 10, 15 years ago, you didn't live longer than a year. They decided David would have a vasectomy. They would not risk having another child go through what Hope went through. So David had his vasectomy, and it didn't work, because a year and a half later, she got pregnant again. And they tested in utero, and they found the child had the disease. And they decided to bring the child to birth. And I came in to the picture as chaplain on the first day of that child's life. And I have to say that first day was the best day of that child's life. Because every day that followed, it got sicker and sicker until it finally died. Do you think Tony Robbins or Deepak Chopra or any sort of happy, clappy mega church in Houston, Texas that says, believe in God and get rich and happy, smiley face, would do a damn thing for you? If your children are dying, if you know you've got a gene that is going to kill your offspring, would that do anything for you? Part of my walk with them was not to make them good Episcopalians. That's not what a chaplain does. It meets people where they are and offers them the strength and consolation of faith. And if they ask, then I go the next step and minister to them. That's step 2, not step 1 in hospice ministry. And I shared with them, and they wanted to know who this God was that they could rely on. Because they're normal people. I think they lived in Stewart. They're normal Floridians who happen to have a rare genetic defect that is killing their kids. What could they rely on? What could they trust? And oddly enough, what spoke to David and Nancy was the God of Isaiah. a God of holiness, a God of power, a God who is so wonderful and awesome and never changing, that he is the rock on which they can cling. Friends, sometime in your life, the bottom is going to fall out. It could be like my friend Bill, that everything is going right in the world. He's got a public company, he's a billionaire, he's a this, he's a that, and he's just got served and his life is over. You could have your children die of an incurable disease and not know what to do. You can care for a spouse, a loved one, a child, a daughter, a husband, a mother with dementia or Alzheimer's or a disability, and no, it's not going to get better. When you have Alzheimer's, there's only one direction that it goes in. What sort of God do you need? You need a God who's a solid rock, a God who is unchanging, a God who gave his only Son so that you might break out of the trap of sin and death. A God who in your pain can hold you in his arms because Jesus has experienced that pain as well. He has been there. When I was a young priest, I really gave great marriage and childbearing advice. What did I know? I had a wonderful book to tell me what to say. 25 years later, after having children, after being married all these years, I know that you could be the most wonderful parent in the world and your kids can go this way, or that way, or whichever way. Life doesn't work according to our plans a lot of the time. And we've got to trust and rely on one thing if we're to hold on. And I ask that you trust in Jesus. Friends, you're going to get hurt one day. It's all going to happen to all of us. I pray, God, that that day is far off and that you have the strength to withstand it. But when the bottom falls out, know that the end is not the end. When you're in the pit, Christ is there with you. He doesn't stand in front of you. Some people think when they're Christians, all the holes are filled in. Life is perfect from that day forward. It's not true. When the pit is still there, you can and may fall into it, but Christ will be there in that pit with you. And if you allow him, he'll let you climb out on his back. Friends, hold on. I know this is not a cruise ship sermon. I know this is not something happy clappy where you're all going to be rich and famous and millionaires. And well, ladies, there is now an unattached billionaire on the market, so one of you may think happy thoughts, but it's not. This is not a topic that makes me want to jump up and shout, but it's something that is so important that I need to touch on and I need to share with you. Trust in God. He's there for you. He loves you. No matter how you screw up things, he's still there. He will be there for you no matter what. You just asked one thing, maybe two. One, believe, and by believing, trust in Jesus. He is there. He never changes. He's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He's a God